Hat, sunglasses, Pepsi, notes, sources, thick skin. Check. You already know. Let's go. Golden Blooded is a college football YouTube channel for entertainment. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get into our next college football video. Don't forget to send gear to represent your team. The address is P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. Yeah. Shout out to the winners of our bowl prediction contest. We had a three-way tie for third place. In third place, we had Alan Aaron, we had Matthew Skidmore, and we had Charlie Wood. And for second place, we also had a two-way tie, so there will be two people that will get a signed Golden Blooded flat bill hat. First one is LSU number 1 2019 DJB, and the second one is Jason Rollinson. But of course, the first place spot and winner of $50, firefighter1218@gmail.com. Make sure to comment on my videos, because here in the off season, it gets challenging putting out content, especially when viewers, college football fans, start losing interest in college football. So you're trying to come up with content that people are interested in. So what I've started doing is looking in my comments section for some video ideas, and let me tell you, you guys do not let me down. A lot of great video ideas. And today's video was a response on a Virginia Tech video that I did the other day. I talked about Virginia Tech signing a 10-year contract as far as playing every year a game versus Old Dominion in football, over a 10-year contract that West Virginia offered them, where West Virginia would play Virginia Tech for 10 years in a row. And some people pointed out, if that happened, then they would have to drop either a Maryland or an Ole Miss or one of the other out-of-conference games whenever it comes to a Power 5 team, because nobody schedules 3 Power 5 teams in their out-of-conference. That is a good argument. However, there were still some years in there where they could still play West Virginia, but they chose to play teams like Old Dominion, I already talked about it, Marshall, James Madison, Maryland, and Liberty. So yeah, I think that the rivalry between West Virginia and Virginia Tech would be definitely more valuable than any of those matchups. However, somebody in the comments section pointed something out. This one is from James Westmoreland. Says, you've been saying for a while now that West Virginia will be invited to the ACC soon. Well, I actually stopped saying that a while back. I did say it for a while, but then that started falling apart as far as the talks between West Virginia and the ACC. Those two did talk about it. I don't know who cut who off, but somebody stopped talking to the other, and it just kind of fell apart. So no, I haven't been saying West Virginia to the ACC for quite some time. Is it still possible? Yes, but I don't think that it's likely. However, West Virginia and Virginia Tech not scheduling each other for a while now could suggest that West Virginia's headed to the ACC. But on the flip side, West Virginia is still scheduling Pitt. Right now, we're on a 4-game stretch of a home-and-home with Pitt. We'll take a short break, and then it will resume. So that kind of dispels that. But the last part of his comment is really what made my eyebrows raise. The part where it says, maybe VT's out-of-conference schedule is preparing for this. And the reason that made me raise my eyebrows is because I don't necessarily think that it's Virginia Tech preparing for West Virginia joining the ACC, because West Virginia is still scheduling Pitt, so that really doesn't make sense. What if it's Virginia Tech is preparing to come to the Big 12? Now, that's something that's interesting, and I think that's something that's very, very possible. Now, I do know that Virginia Tech is trying to get AAU status, and if Virginia Tech gets AAU status, then they would be a draw for the Big Ten, and I do think that the Big Ten would be interested in Virginia Tech. I know the Big Ten would want North Carolina, Duke, and Georgia Tech, and Virginia, but maybe they would choose Virginia Tech over one of those other schools. I'm not sure. Or maybe the SEC would be interested in Virginia Tech. I don't know. But if the Big Ten and the SEC are not interested in Virginia Tech, those 8 teams vote to dissolve the grant of rights and the ACC dissolves, then Virginia Tech would be headed to the Big 12, and this would signify that, because you wouldn't need to schedule West Virginia in your out-of-conference if you play West Virginia in conference. So that's the one that I think really makes the most sense. And another thing to consider about Virginia Tech as far as them heading to the Big 10, if you're looking at the schedule, they did schedule Maryland. So if Virginia Tech had high confidence that they were going into the Big Ten, then they wouldn't need to schedule Maryland for an out-of-conference game, because Maryland is in the Big Ten. So that would point further that Virginia Tech would actually be headed to either the Big 12 or the SEC if they're interested. As far as who would go with Virginia Tech in the Big 12, well, I think it would be Pitt, Syracuse, and Louisville, because I would think it would be an either-or type of situation. The Big 12 could get either Virginia Tech or the Miami Hurricanes. And to be honest with you, I actually think it would be a better deal for the Big 12 to grab Virginia Tech, just because all of the connected rivalries. You bring in these 4 teams, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Syracuse, and Louisville, and you're talking about 4 or 5 rivalries right then and there, because West Virginia and Cincinnati, they're already in the Big 12. Of course, the backyard brawl between West Virginia and Pitt might be the biggest rivalry out of all of these rivalries, but you also have Virginia Tech and Pitt. That's a good rivalry. Virginia Tech and Louisville, Louisville and Pitt, Louisville and Syracuse, Syracuse and Pitt, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Cincinnati. Don't forget about Cincinnati. They're in there too. And honestly, I'm at this point to where I'm okay with West Virginia being in the Big 12. I never had a problem with West Virginia being in the Big 12 as far as the conference goes. It's a pretty good conference. It's the fact that we don't get to play our rivals. So I'm at the point where I'm okay with West Virginia being in the Big 12. Bringing in Cincinnati does help. But if the Big 12 doesn't try to go after Pitt, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Louisville, and the Miami Hurricanes whenever the ACC does dissolve, that's when I will have a problem with West Virginia being in the Big 12. Because right now, I still have hope that the Big 12 can bring in the rivals of West Virginia. And if that doesn't pan out, that's when I will be very, very mad that West Virginia is in the Big 12 and we don't get to play our rivals. It's already been long enough. I don't want to see a foreseeable future where we do not play our rivals. That will make me mad. And maybe Virginia Tech making this schedule and saying yes to Old Dominion and no to West Virginia is actually a sign that Virginia Tech could end up in the same conference as West Virginia. And yes, it could be West Virginia going to the ACC, but like I said before, West Virginia scheduling Pitt makes that not make sense. So it would be far more likely for Virginia Tech to go to the Big 12, and that would be a home run get for the Big 12. And we heard that the Big 12 was interested in those 3/4 of the 4 corner state schools as far as Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. And that kind of went away. And maybe it was because the Big 12 knew that the ACC might vote to dissolve. And they want some teams out of the ACC over teams out of the Pac-12. Not necessarily that the brands are more valuable that they would get out of the ACC, but the Big 12 really needs to strengthen the east side of the conference. That is a priority right now because you have Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF out on an island. Now, having said that, maybe choosing Miami over Virginia Tech would actually help UCF. And I've talked to a lot of Miami Hurricane fans, and they would be delighted to be in the Big 12. They know they're not going to the SEC because of the Florida factor. It's not guaranteed that they're going to get AAU status, therefore getting accepted into the Big 10. So looking forward, the ACC falls apart and Miami goes to the Big 12. They actually like that idea, and they would have a travel partner with UCF. And I think it would be a winnable conference for the Miami Hurricanes, especially with their new coach, Mario Cristobal. I think Miami is on the right track as far as the new coach and having success in the ACC. But if they move on, I think Miami would have the best chance of having success in the Big 12. I think the SEC is just dominated too much by the Georgias, the LSUs, the Alabamas, and the Tennessees right now. They would kind of be mid-tier at best. In fact, they might be stuck at the lower level if they ever did join the SEC. Making a crap ton of money, and that would help recruit, but the competition is just too stiff in the SEC. You'd be a solid team in the middle, but you'd really never have a chance to win the SEC. As far as the Big Ten goes, I just don't think that Miami would be a good fit in the Big Ten. Way too far south, even though we know the Big Ten went in and got USC and UCLA, so they are used to stretching, and they do want a team in the state of Florida. It just wouldn't make sense for Miami. That travel would be brutal. And what about the years where they would draw USC or UCLA on a road trip? Wow, you talk about a long road trip. That's probably the longest road trip possible, except maybe a road trip to Washington. That might be the longest trip possible by anybody in the United States when it comes to college football. As far as Virginia Tech goes, I would love Virginia Tech to come to the Big 12. I loved going to the Black Diamond rivalry back in 2021 when it was in Morgantown. That was a great game. It came down to a 4th and goal stand with under 20 seconds left. That was an amazing game. I want to see that game played every year, just like I want to see the Backyard Brawl played every year as well. I also went to the Backyard Brawl last year whenever we went on the road and lost by just a touchdown to Pitt. And Pitt turned out to be a good team, and West Virginia turned out to be a 5-7 team. That's what a rivalry does. It evens the playing field because both teams are playing with emotion, and it doesn't matter whether it's a home game or a road game. Anybody can win that game. I fully expect West Virginia to beat Pitt in 2023, and I will be in Morgantown with my brother and my friends to watch that win over Pitt. That's going to be a good day for me. So if I have any Virginia Tech fans watching this video, y'all let me know in the comments section. And even if you're not a Virginia Tech fan, do you think Virginia Tech choosing Old Dominion over West Virginia and not scheduling West Virginia could be a sign that Virginia Tech could be headed to the Big 12 in the future? Do you think Virginia Tech will get AAU status and possible consideration to the Big 10? And do you think Virginia Tech has a shot shot to get into the SEC. Personally, I think they have a shot, but I don't think it's a good shot. I think the SEC wants Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and NC State. Those are the 4 teams that they want. They will have to fight the Big Ten over North Carolina. Maybe if they don't get North Carolina, then they would try to get Virginia Tech. But other than that, I just don't see Virginia Tech going to the SEC. Virginia Tech, the Big 12, I like it. I think they would be a good fit, and the rivalries would be there. That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.